Good morning. I hope you guys are having a wonderful day. First live class of the year is taking place July 18th through 22nd. 18, 19, 20, 20. Yes, 18th through 22nd. Fired up. Sold out. For those of you guys who are interested in future classes, get a hold of Ray. He's the man, the myth, the education coordinator. He'll get you guys dialed in. I'm going to cover some of the aspects of the fundamentals class yesterday. This will give you guys a good idea for those of you guys who are starting off with acrylic. Let's go ahead and start. All right, so what we want to be able to do, and this is really what I want to focus on today, is consistency. So I'm not going to be getting into prep too much today. I wanted to really focus on what you're going to be able to do when you're working with, say, and again, it doesn't matter what acrylic you're working with. It could be speed paint, it could be speed clear, but you need to be able to dial in the consistency. I'm trying to find, here we go. I got some frosted pink right here. All right, this is a pretty fast setting powder. Here we go. So what we want to focus on, for those of you guys who have this is one of the fastest powders in the line. And, the biggest issue that a lot of beginners struggle with is picking up the right size pearl. So, if you're dipping your brush and you're pulling a lot of liquid off of multiple sides, so again, if you're submersing your brush and you're coming here and you're bouncing off both ends, and then you're holding the powder in the surface just like this, what's going to end up happening is you're going to end up with a bead, as you can see, that has like a lot of dry spots. You could see the inconsistency that pearl has, right? That's not even. So, and this is a fast setting powder. What you want to be able to do is you want to be able to dip your brush and get a nice amount of liquid, lightly touch the brush, right? And then you need to be able to bounce inside the powder, right? So it's going to be able to create a bead that not only melts fast, it's going to be able to come off the brush with ease, okay? So, there are going to be different consistencies when you're, doing an overlay, meaning you're going to be building the cuticle area in the body compared to actually building the tip. There's different consistencies when you're working with white. But general rule of thumb, when you're picking up a bead, you want to try to pick it up again with a lot of liquid, meaning, and it doesn't matter whether you're working with, again, a number 12 or you're working with a number 9, right? So, two totally different size brushes. If I was working with a smaller brush, I still need a lot of liquid. That way I could bounce inside the powder and I could get myself a nice even bead just like this. Now, I want to show you based on a hand. If I was working too dry, meaning if I dipped my brush, right, and I just held it in the surface, meaning I didn't bounce, I just held it in the surface, what's going to end up happening is I'm going to get just really dry spots. Now, again, if I set this down and the brush releases, there's still like a dry patch right here. You see that nothing happens. It just sits. So this is a problem, because then what you're forced to do is you're forced to kind of try to press that cuticle area, and then you end up with this giant ledge all the way around. I don't want that to happen to you. What I want you to be able to do is I want you to be able to pick up something where it's going to come off quite easy. So let me just kind of pull this off. You need to be able to work with a bead, especially around the perimeter of the nail, right? You need it to self-level. It needs a self-level not just this way, it needs a self-level this way as well. So it self-levels this way, self-levels this way. So when you're working with a fast powder, right, you're going to notice that if, again, I'm going to try to keep everything on screen here, but you're going to notice if I submerge my brush and I get a lot of liquid and I bounce inside the powder, sorry, let me do that one more time. If I submerge my brush and, I bounce inside the powder and I hold it here for a couple of seconds, and then I go ahead and release it, you're going to notice how easy it is for me to kind of work around. But do you see how the bead just kind of rolls, right? So it rolls, it's rolling this way, but what you're going to see is it roll all around from this point. I'm just going to kind of mark to this point right here, right? So the surrounding area, it ends up self-leveling with the least amount of ledge. That's really important. Okay, so now throw in a combination of using your brush to get everything to come down. If you have the right amount of liquid, you submerge your brush and you get yourself a nice amount of liquid, and then you bounce inside the powder, right, to get yourself a nice healthy amount. And then again, count out about 3 to 4 seconds, especially with a faster powder. You release, you kind of tap, and then using, again, the brush, right? At this point, as it starts to move and you start to notice it actually setting, if I start to use the tip of my brush as the product starts to set, then what I'll be able to do is I'll be able to kind of guide it down into the rest of the body without it basically getting away, right? This product sets really fast. So even if there was a ledge, I was able to take my brush and kind of pat it down. I'm going to be able to get really, really tight ledges. I won't have a really thick ledge around the perimeter of the nail. That's really important. Now, if you're working with, again, if you're working with, a product that, that has some self-leveling nature, here's some clear. We have some core clear, core natural, right? So it's going to set a little bit different. It's going to set a little bit slower. But I want to be able to do the same exact thing. I love the way that the core sets because it really does give you time to move. And, the cover powders will do the same thing. If I submerge my brush and then, again, I still have a lot of liquid, and then I bounce inside the powder and I count 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I release at 5, and then I use the tip of my brush to kind of guide that around the perimeter of the nail. I'm gonna get a really slow roll. So just by using the tip of the brush to kind of guide everything down, I'm able to guide it, but you notice how everything is tapering down this way. Then as soon as the bead gets down to the front end, I could use the tip of my brush to just kind of seal it. And then I kind of lift the finger up and then use the body of the brush to kind of hold it in place. So if you were sculpting, you would use the side of the brush to kind of hold it in place so that it doesn't run down the sides, right? And if I was working an overlay, let's say we glued a tip on, the whole goal is to try to overlay the product, to get it to move, to try to keep a well-balanced structure, right? So, you can notice from the side profile, if too much of it ends up running down here, then what I can end up doing is using the body of the brush, even that little bit of a ledge. Look at this. If I use the tip of my brush and I end up just pulling those sides down, everything starts tapering down nice. I could use the body of the brush and kind of force back some of the acrylic into the stress area so that we naturally have shape. That's what we want to be able to do. But the key is to get it to roll. That's the biggest struggle with a lot of beginners is they work with the pearl either way too dry, and if they have success picking up the pearl based on the right amount of liquid on the brush, and they set it down and they're like, it's way too wet, what you're missing is that you have to just wait. Just wait. Like you'll notice, right? Look at this. Look at the difference working core. If I was to, let's just take this finger for an example. If I was to take a lot of liquid and then pick up a bead and then just immediately set this down and I start tapping it, what ends up happening sometimes is the product ends up running way too fast, right? Look at this. It ends up running way too fast where it could end up dripping off of the nail, right? So now I have the finger held down at that kind of an angle, right? So, that, again, could be a problem. Now look at the difference. Let me just pull one of these. I'll just use this finger right here. Let me just go ahead and get this off, right? Now, let's go ahead and take that same amount of liquid. Watch this. If I submerge my brush, again, with a lot of liquid, and then I get myself that same bead, bounce, 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 bounce. Watch this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then at 6, I release and wipe my brush. I still have great workability, right? Look at that. I can still really kind of get around, and then like the bead is moving. I can really kind of control the movement without it getting away. It's a slow roll. So if I needed to kind of bring this down and feather it into place without the body getting away from me, I could really control the movement of acrylic by just letting it sit for just a hair longer before I set it down. Now again, for core, okay? Speed's a little bit different, and depending on how fast the powder set, you're gonna have to kind of play around. I'm giving you guys kind of a guide on what to do. When you're working with the speed powders, again, use a lot of liquid, pick it up, give it a couple seconds to breathe, set it down, rock and roll. Sometimes depending on how warm it is, you're gonna go straight from powder to the finger. With core powders, use a lot of liquid, pick it up, count to 5 to 6 before you set it down. You get that slow controlled roll where you're going to be able to feather not just the front end down tight to the free edge, you're going to be able to allow it to roll tight to the back end as well as the sidewalls. It's going to help you guys tremendously. If there's any questions, hit me up. I'm always here to help. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys much. Have a great day. Peace.